Welcome to Legion Radio, a podcast about all things e-commerce, the official podcast of the private label Legion, hosted by Tim Jordan.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Legion Radio, the official podcast of the private label Legion. We are super excited to be here today with Bradley Sutton, who just told me that he doesn't know Spanish very well, but you just did an entire hour training session in Spanish. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, I know regular Spanish, fairly well. I'm not of Latin descent at all. I'm actually Filipino and American, but living in California, you kind of have to speak Spanish if you grow up here, literally. And so I can speak like 80-90% Spanish, but I jumped on this call with one of our affiliates who's big in Amazon Spain, and the entire call was in Spanish, and I discovered that Amazon Spanish is a whole other ballgame because there's all these words that you would never use in a regular conversation, and I was having to think on the fly, and I was just sweating bullets. It was pretty crazy. And how do you say back end keywords in Spanish?
And Spain Spanish is very different than California Spanish.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So
the first time I went to Spain, McDonald's in California, you speak Spanish at McDonald's too. It's where I'm from in San Diego. But Mexican Spanish, you say papas fritas is French fries.
French fries, yeah. In
Spain, a completely different word. Patatas is and so I ordered papas fritas. Well, what's this weirdo doing? So
no más chicharrones. Admit it, you're a little impressed that I know what a chicharrones is.
That's pretty impressive.
It's pretty impressive. All right. So as we're thinking about what we want to talk about, I wanted to talk about you. And my understanding is that you were in e-commerce well before you got involved with Helium-10. So if you would just kind of talk just briefly about how you got started in e-commerce, kind of what you accomplished and figured out in e-commerce yourself, and then how that led to your introduction and kind of frontman position now with Helium-10.
Yeah, it's a cool story, bro. Actually, for real. Back in, I'm going to age myself now, but I have a daughter who's about to graduate high school, so people can figure I guess I am a little bit older than I look. But in 98, 99, I was 20, 21 years old, and the Fast and the Furious movies had just come out, and I was totally into it. You remember those days, right?
Dude, I was totally into it too. I lived up in Michigan, and that's like Motor City, USA, right? So everybody's dad had muscle cars, all these Dodges and Fords and Chevys, but all their kids like me were in Mazdas and Hondas and all that stuff. So man, I was right there with you.
Yeah. So me, my whole entire life, and we'll probably talk about this later, I'm always trying to be, I don't know if it's I'm trying, but just naturally I'm different. I march to the beat of a different drum. So everybody in California was like Hondas and Toyotas and Nissans, right, for the full Fast and Furious thing. But me, I had a Korean car. Nowadays, Korean cars are like the top rated stuff. But back in the 90s, Hyundais didn't have a great reputation. Yeah. And so I had a Hyundai. I watched Fast and Furious, and I wanted parts for my car. But nobody in America made it. But here's the thing. In Korea, that's the Hyundai and Kia were the Hondas and Nissan of Korea. So there is tons of aftermarket car companies in Korea that made parts for Hyundais. And I was like, well, there's tons of people in America who are like me and have a Korean car, and they can't find products for their car. They're having to custom make exhaust, custom make intake. So I contacted the top aftermarket company out there. I'm like, guys, there's a big market here. I need stuff for my car. Let me help you make a branch office here, and I'm going to open you guys to the U.S. market. This is way before Amazon and eBay wasn't really a thing. So we basically made their website in America, and I started I opened up a 3,000 square foot warehouse for them. And long story short, within 6 months, I was running $1 million business at the age of 20 just because of my hobby, where I wanted some parts for my car. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm going to buy some stuff from these people, but why don't I make money at the same time? So I worked in that industry for maybe about 5 or 10 years, even actually in future Fast and Furious movies, we had some cars that we had put in the Fast and Furious. But as we all know, when the American economy kind of went south, well, who's got money for a carbon fiber hood? I mean, it's not something that you really need. So I got
especially when you can put decals on the window that give you at least 15 horsepower per
least,
decal, right?
At least
15. Yeah.
My goodness, those days were great. You're bringing back some memories now.
I know you're bringing back memories too.
I even had a sticker making fun of that. One of my decals was got rice, with a question mark.
Oh yeah, I love the got rice, and I also loved. I put one on my dad's old Pontiac. It said "sleeper" on the back of it because I love the sleeper cars. I didn't want the wings. I didn't want the nice wheels. I wanted the sleeper car.
Yeah, I made money off of all those people though who thought that humongous aluminum wings and decals would give them horsepower and stuff. Shoot, you want to give me money for that stuff? I'll take it. So that was a good run. I was in that industry for about 5-10 years, but then after that, I had to go back to working for the man, and I've always had a passion for marketing, and so I started working in the food industry as marketing as a marketer for one of the biggest food companies in America. And that was just boring me out of my mind. So I was making good money, but it was just it was a salad making company, and all day long I'm just looking at numbers about which salads are in which grocery stores and what's their inventory, and they're just and I have to ask for vacation days. I'm after working 10 years and being my own boss and doing whatever I want, that was just torture, right? So one of my old partners from the Fast and Furious company days, he was like, "Hey, I'm starting a phone case company, and we're gonna try and do something. Do you want to join up with me?" And I'm like, "Shoot, anything to get out of to get out of this." And this was before now on Amazon, phone cases is one of the most saturated markets, but this is before then, and this is around the Galaxy S3 days. So I don't know what year that was. Probably about now we're Galaxy 10 or something.
Yeah.
So probably 7 years ago, and he found a guy here in California who just had a .com site for phone accessories. And they're like, "Hey, let's try this stuff on Amazon." And one of those guys just had the idea, "Hey, instead of just doing pictures of it, let's make these 3D renderings. Let's make 3D renderings of the phone cases, and let's put them in this format, right?" And he put them on there, and in 5 SKUs, they were selling 1,000 units a day each SKU. With they didn't know what the heck they were doing, but they just found this formula, and complete luck. We were importing containers every week of 5 SKUs and phone cases. You can imagine how many phone cases are fitting, in a container, and they were just making ridiculous money, but by accident, right? I didn't know much was going on. I was just kind of the sales guy and the logistics guy. I actually had a warehouse. I still do have this house, but behind my house, I had a 2,000 square foot warehouse. I bought this house from a woodworking guy, right? So I was like, "Hey guys, you take over my house, and that'll make that the office. I'll go freaking move in with my parents, back with my parents. You guys take my house, convert it to office, use the warehouse." And so that was my contribution to the company, and they were doing great. But what happened was they had no idea how to do Amazon. They just completely lucked out. And then companies like Speedgen and Caseology are like, "Okay, look what this company, no-name company, is doing. We'll just copy their format, and we actually know how to do things on Amazon." And they just pretty much killed us because we didn't progress. And so we went from making 1,000 units a day to 500 to 100 to 10 units a day. It literally went down to, so that company kind of went under, and I got out of there before that happened. I took my shares and I just left. And now this was 3, 4, 5 years ago. I'm like, what do? I don't really know how to do Amazon. Nobody taught me. I was just kind of the logistics guy. In my warehouse, we had a machine. We bought a $20,000 packaging machine. I was packaging 500 to 600 units a day for our Amazon, fulfilled by merchant, right? That was pretty much what I could do. I could send stuff to FBA. I didn't know anything. They kind of kept things secret from me about Amazon. So I went back. I'm like, okay, I'm jobless. I don't know what I want to do. So what I did was I was just you know what? I'm just going to learn this Amazon thing. Just 3-4 years ago now. And I went to this conference. It was Zon Squad Live in Chicago, made by who are now the Six Leaf guys. And that just blew my mind. I had no idea about anything about Amazon, and I was just like, whoa, what is going on? And I'll never forget, I was pretty poor. I actually didn't even get a hotel. It was a 2-day conference. I slept in my rental car right there. I still have pictures of it. And this conference kind of changed my life because I was I saw the potential on Amazon. And so from then on, for a few months, I just
dedicated myself and got obsessed with taking courses, going to conferences, learning everything I could about Amazon. And within 6 months, I was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. But I don't have any money to make my own product. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do with all this knowledge? And at that time, my old company, they contacted me and they're like, hey, we're not doing phone cases anymore. We're doing a lot of Korean beauty products and we're doing all this stuff. But to be honest, we still don't know how to do Amazon. And we know that you did all this training. Can you help us out as a consultant? So I'm like, sure. So I started helping them launch their products. I would write all their listings. I would launch them. And then I started outsourcing my consulting services to other companies. And within 2 years, I basically had launched 400 products, for other people. And, they would just pay me to write their listings. They would pay me to give them all their strategy and all the stuff that I had learned. And it was the life. And I was happy with it. And then from there, I needed insurance. So I'm like, dang it. I still could make money if I wanted to do my own products, but I'm one of those, my ADHD sometimes doesn't let me just like stick to something. So I'm like, I don't want to make my own product and I don't want to take this risk. So I just need to get some insurance because this Obamacare or whatever happened is killing me, and paying for my own insurance, I was paying too much money. So I got a job at the number one diet pill company in America. The owner of that company, I was their private Zumba instructor for like 5 years. That's a whole nother story. During all this time, I actually became a Zumba instructor after I became a sumo wrestler. That's another story too. But I got like 30 million hits on YouTube because I knew how to market myself on YouTube. And so this famous people, they're so rich that they don't want to go to the gym. They're that kind of rich. And so I was like, hey, I'll go to your house and give you Zumba classes for $100 an hour. Sure. And they were my good friends. And I did that for like 5 years. They're like, hey, come work for us. Come head up our Amazon department. We need help. Be our sales manager. So I became the sales manager. I grew their sales from like 500,000 to 2 million within a year. And I was happy. I was like, okay, this is good. I'm still doing consulting on the side for Amazon, for my old company, from other people. I'm making a lot of money doing that. I'm making the most money I've ever made working for the man, working for friends as a sales manager, and I grew their business. And this was the life. I work 5 minutes away from my house. I'm like, let's do this. This is my last job. And then all throughout this time, I'm one of those people who's very argumentative. Back in the Fast and Furious days, I was those guys who would go on those message boards and like argue with everybody who's saying that Hondas is better than Hyundais, and I would give them all the horsepower stats and all this stuff. I was that guy who would just spend hours. My wife hated
and put it on a dyno.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, dude, well, like, oh yeah, I got this horsepower. I'm like, well, okay, show me the dyno. I would just do all this stuff, right? So that's just me. And what really irritated me was I'm a member of all these Facebook groups about Amazon. And there's all this misinformation that everybody always spreads.
Yep.
And that pisses me off. It's one thing if they're saying wrong things, but like, nobody believes it. But then when I would see that everybody is like totally eating up what these people said and like basing their strategy off it, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, people were making business decisions based on like hearsay. And
exactly. Oh yeah, you're going to get penalized if you do give. This is like a year ago. Oh yeah, you get penalized if you do giveaways. I'm like,
I used to see people like, and they still do it. They're like, oh, I wish I could put my my own like website on my packaging. And I'm like, why can't you? They're like, well, it's against terms of service. Bull crap. Every pair of Nike shoes, and I mean, everybody puts a brand on it. Like, but the problem is they've read that in a Facebook group, and man, it gets me fired up. And I get on my soapbox and I start throwing stuff around my office. And
yeah,
I occasionally
you and I are cut from the same cloth. We were just on a Facebook message the other day about something you showed me that pissed you off. But so that's me. So what I would do is I would go, and when I would see people say, like, for example, giveaways don't work or you get penalized. Since I was launching still 20, 30 products a month, on my spare time. And I had all this tons of data, all my graphs and everything. I would just go on there and I'd write these long rants. Actually, you can see some of them. They're still in like the Helium 10 users forum. Somebody just resurrected one of them from the dead, the other day. But I would just go off and like give them all the details and just rip them a new one. I'm like, dude, you're such an idiot. Look at this. Tell me how this doesn't work. How I just got this beauty product to page 1, on a giveaway of 200 or something. And then I guess Manny and Guy, the owners over here at Helium 10, they're like, who is this guy? And they say, hell, he lives down in like San Diego. So like, only an hour and a half down south. So they contacted me on Facebook, like, hey, come up and meet with us here in Irvine. We'd love to talk to you about some ideas. So I was just like, okay, cool. I was like, at that time I was using Helium 10 as a user. That was my go-to tool for my consulting business. And so they met with me here at the Irvine Spectrum. And then, we had a nice conversation. They're like, hey, we'd like to make you an offer. I'm like, well, I'm not looking for a job. I already found my, I'm good. Thank you. I'm working for my friends, 5 minutes from my house. This is kind of a long drive, but they just kept after me. And so eventually I was like, you know what? Let's do this. So I put in my 2-week notice at the diet pill company, and I came here and really didn't know exactly what they were going to use me for. But at first I came here as the operations manager, but then I started making videos, and they saw how passionate I was about, the training and things like that. And so like, hey, we're going to make you the success manager. I was like, success manager? What the heck is that? That sounds like one of these hippie kind of job titles. I was like, what is a success manager? But basically what I do here is I'm all about the success for the affiliates. We have a lot of affiliates who work for us, and users. We've got thousands of users. And at the end of the day, if our users are successful, they're going to stay with us. If they're successful on Amazon, they're going to stay with us. And for me, the most fulfilling job I can have is if I'm being paid for something that I used to pay to do, and I'm helping others. That's why I loved being a Zumba fitness instructor. I said I was a sumo wrestler before. That was how I lost 70 pounds after I stopped sumo, was doing Zumba. So I used to pay to do Zumba fitness. But then all of a sudden now I was being paid to do what I used to pay. And at the same time, I was helping people. I mean, like I would have my students losing like 50 or 60 pounds. So that was like the perfect job. And I thought I would never get that again. But then here in Helium 10, it's like I used to pay to use Helium 10 because I love the tool. Now I'm being paid to do it. And I'm seeing that I'm helping people become 6-figure sellers, 7-figure sellers, whatever. And you know exactly what I'm talking about because you do something similar. When you see students or your audience who takes things that you're teaching them and applies it and then becomes successful and the feeling that, wow, I actually played a small role in that. It's like the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah. When you get those and not even the ones where I'm tagged in, but like I see like in fact, one of the big FBA high rollers, group that you guys have, like someone tagged me the other day, or didn't even tag me. They mentioned me. Someone had found me. I'm like, holy crap, I did something right. Like, that's awesome. Somebody out there heard that. Yeah. And I also like, and this happens to you too, is, we can have a circle of people that communicate with us a lot, but man, there's such a great feeling when you meet somebody that you've never met before. I'll go to a conference and some random person shakes my hand and they're like, yeah, I'm doing all these numbers on Amazon. I'm like, awesome. Good to meet you. And they're like, yeah, I've known you for 9 months. I'm like, crap, did I meet this guy and forget? And he's like, I watched a YouTube video you did 9 months ago or a podcast you did and it like changed what I did and it worked. And I'm like, holy crap. And then I'm like, can I get you to record that? Like, can I get a testimonial?
Right,
I never think about that. But ultimately, like it makes you feel good because, the pain that it took you to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We've all been there. We've all been there.
So like when you have to buy your own car, you take a little better care of it because you appreciate it. So when you've bled and struggled and, fought those battles yourself to figure something out, and then you can help other people do it, you appreciate it more because you had to bleed too. So now you're what'd you call it? Success manager?
Success manager.
Success manager at Helium 10. And you see a lot of what goes on because I know Helium 10 and all the other software companies out there, they're really, really focused on what works and what doesn't. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately sometimes, a lot of things change. I know that, the giveaway strategy has changed. I know that the review strategy has changed. I know that the sourcing strategy has changed. The research, all this stuff changes. And you guys are really up to date on that. Like you guys, I'm sure you have full-time staff that's all they do is track that stuff down. Mm-hmm. And last time I talked to Manny in person, he's like, well, I'm going up to Amazon to meet with them talking about something they're changing in the access point that we have for this information. And, all this stuff changes, but that's also scary to people. A lot of the people in this community, and I won't even say Amazon sellers, I'll say in the Amazon selling community are stuck. And they're stuck based on indecision or insecurity. And they know a lot, like 80% of the process, they understand, they know it, they know how to do it. They know how to do the great photos and set up a great listing. And they know how to, import all these products from who knows where, but there's like a small piece of the puzzle that they can't figure out in their head, or a little insecurity going on in their head that keeps them from like taking that first step forward. And one of those things, one of those, kind of sources of that noise are all the changes, because that's what everybody talks about. So in these Amazon groups and these Amazon centric, Facebook groups and communities that we're in, like everybody's talking about that and it scares people. But when I take a step back and when I start thinking to myself, yeah, there's a lot of things that change, but there's also things that we've been doing the same way for 3 years. Like, life is not about a launch tactic. And business is not all centered around, finding the next great thing on the next great social media platform. Like, there are some business fundamentals that take precedence. Like, you have to make profit. Like, you have to have a good systematized, process in your business. And I think a lot of people are so worried about what's in the headlines that they forget about the things that haven't changed. And I say all that because I think there's an encouraging message there. And that encouraging message is, no matter all the stuff that you're hearing and all the noise and all the clutter and all the, panic, oh, this doesn't work anymore. It changed next week and in 3 years it'll change again. The opportunity to sell products online is still tremendous. And Amazon is still a great platform, especially to launch and get started. It's still part of our process. It's like our first stop, and then we start moving away from it. But what I'd like to do, Bradley, if you're all right, is, if you're all right with this, but let's talk about some of those things that have not changed, like some of the foundations. Like, what can we be secure in knowing that tomorrow, if we implement this process, or next week we implement this procedure, that like in a year from now or 2 years from now, it will still be there because it would not have changed, specific to selling on Amazon. So hit me with some of those. I know I haven't really given you time to prepare, but let's go through some of those.
You bring up an excellent point, and I'm right with you, because what I see, and this is one of the things that I get pissed off when gurus or other tools try and use marketing techniques to push like this brainwashing thing. Everybody does get brainwashed, and now they're all in the mindset like some certain metric, whether it's search volume or relevancy or something. It's like all important. And then when people get all invested in it, and then Amazon closes the loop, right? Then it's like, oh my goodness, the sky is falling.
Or a competitor figures it out. Like you may have got lucky on something. Yeah.
Not so unique anymore, right? So I think what you're saying is so valuable, and I hope everybody listens to what you were saying, that we need to focus more on the constants. All right. Some people say, well, the only thing consistent in Amazon is change. Well, that's true, but there are certain things that I guarantee will not change. And here's number one. It just came to my head right now. Is a big mistake that we make as sellers is we think too much like sellers. We need to take a step back and think as a buyer. And all of us should be Amazon buyers. I mean, I don't know of one Amazon seller who doesn't buy their toilet paper or doesn't buy their phone case, on Amazon. All right. As a buyer, we need to make sure we do not forget that mentality. All right. And this is not easy. I say this, but I totally get it. How once we're in the seller mindset, it's hard to kind of like switch gears. But sometimes we get so focused on some advanced metric or an advanced tactic, when all we need to do is take a step back and say, hey, if I was a buyer, what would I think? People say, should I have 203 characters in my title, or should I have 176 characters? What if it doesn't get, I'm like, dude, if you're a buyer, what kind of title do you like to see? If you're looking for this, do you want to see a title that is 7 paragraphs long? Or do you want to see a title that's 3 words? Or what kind of title would make you click? And it's like, oh yeah, huh? So put on your buyer's hat, guys. Buyer behavior is always going to be key on Amazon, no matter what. That's the end of the game. People are finding new ways to see what's relevant to Amazon, whether it's a Amazon relevancy score or what's important to Amazon. I mean, even Helium 10, in Helium 10 in Cerebro, we have this metric that Amazon opens up right now. It's called Amazon recommended. You know how when you're doing your PPC, you're going to set up a manual campaign. Amazon actually gives you a list of keywords.
Recommended keywords, yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is that they don't just pick random words that gives you. They actually have a system that's open to the tool companies. You can actually see where they're scoring the keywords according to what they think is the most important for that product. All right. So we're showing you that, but so what? That's just a metric that you could use to help you with your decision. But at the end of the day, do you want to be important only to Amazon, or do you want to be important to the buyer? Yes, of course you have to be important to Amazon, because if Amazon doesn't think your listing is important for a certain category, guess what? You're not even going to get indexed for it. You're not going to get PPC impressions. So yes, I will never say that relevancy to Amazon is not important, but buyer relevancy is the number one important thing that is the beginning of Amazon, when it was textbooks, 10, 15 years ago, to right now, to 15 years from now. Buyer relevancy is going to be important, because at the end of the day, who decides to click on your product? Who decides to hit buy now? it's going to be the buyer. And so the only reason that they're going to do it is if your listing, your product is relevant to them. So guys, that's something important. When you search, and you don't have to guess, you don't even need a tool for this. All right. Obviously tools make things, make your life easier. You can do it faster, but even if you don't use a tool, how do you know what's relevant to the buyer? Well, do the freaking search and look at the results. All right. So for example, if I search kitchen utensils on Amazon, I'm probably going to have a wide variety of stuff. There might be some plastic spoons. There might be some spatulas. There might be some knife sets, right? On page 1. What does that mean when I have a whole variety of results on page 1? Well, that means that buyer behavior is that people who search for kitchen utensils, some of them buy knives, some of them buy spoons. It's not like they're all buying plastic spatulas. All right. Now, if you search for plastic spatula, what are you going to see? You're going to see a whole bunch of listings that are plastic spatulas. Why? Because most people who search for that are buying those exact products or products that look like spatulas. So now that's what you see on page 1. This is not rocket science, guys. So you know that, hey, if I'm selling a plastic spatula, I don't care about the freaking search volume of kitchen utensils that it's 1 million and plastic spatulas is 10,000. The word that's more important for me is plastic spatulas because look, there's the buyer behavior, the buyer buying habits have dictated that this is definitely a relevant keyword to me because Amazon would not show these things on the first page if it wasn't relevant because the only way Amazon gets their 15%, the only way Amazon gets their sponsored ads funds is if there's a click.
Someone buys it.
And if there's a purchase, someone buys it.
Yeah.
Right. So guys, just if nothing else from you take from there, I want you guys to remember that whenever you're making your listing, whenever you're deciding which keywords, whether you use another tool, whether you use Helium 10, whether you use no tools, ask yourself that question. Is it relevant to the buyer? Is this keyword relevant to my product? And you need to do a visual check to do that. There's no tool that's going to go out there and, maybe eventually there's going to be some artificial intelligence that can do this, but there's no tool where you can click a button and say, oh yeah, most of the products on this page, their imagery looks like this. And this applies to keywords. But on my podcast, I just interviewed this guy named Tomer. Do you know Tomer? Tomer Rabinovich from Israel? Really smart guy. And he told me that, hey, it also applies to other parts, not just your keywords, but like your title. Like, hey, in a certain category, a lot of the top sellers, they might all have like 80 character titles. All right. Because usually the things that work well, it's kind of universal. And so if you're in a category where everybody on page 1 has like 80 character titles, guess what? For that category, maybe shorter titles work. Maybe there's another category where everybody on page 1 has like those 2-line 150 character titles. Yeah. Well, guess what? Maybe for that category, you should do that. It works for images. You know what he does for images? And this was like golden. He's like, what I do when I'm making a product and I want to know what kind of images I should do, what I do is I check the most important keywords and I visually look at all the top selling ones in that category and I download their pictures. And I think he puts it into like a PowerPoint or something. And then usually what you're going to see is a consistent theme, a pattern. Like everybody uses a what do you call those things? Like infographics, or everybody uses a certain lifestyle image, or the angle of the main image is like this. And so he says, "Hey, I print these out. I give it to my graphics guy. Say, hey, don't copy this, but hey, this is what works. Take this theme and just make it better." All right. So don't reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, try and make it a little bit better.
So you're on a roll. I'm going to pause you. I want to recap something. I know that in this Amazon community and this, this seller-centric communities that we're in, we're hounded on keywords, and we live, breathe, and sleep keywords. We understand that, but the point that you're making, you've actually made it to me in the past, and I kind of need to be reminded of occasionally, is it doesn't matter how stuffed our titles are, stuffed our descriptions are, because if people don't buy it, it doesn't matter. So in all the online training out there, and I won't say all, but a lot of it, and a lot of these, buy our launch program and all this stuff. It's focused on stuffing these keywords. And there are occasions where you do a whole lot of things to get to page 1. But guys, if you're not getting purchases, if your conversion rate is low, Amazon does not want you there. They're going to give your spot up. So don't sacrifice conversion rate, which is dictated largely by how sellable your listing is. Don't sacrifice your sellability for the technical aspects that you think are so important. Now, you and I talked some time ago, Bradley, about keywords. Amazon gives you a mountain of space for keywords with your backend, with your description. And what you told me that last time that we interviewed you, you were talking about the bullet points. And I 100% agree with you. The bullet points don't have to be keyword stuff. You've got enough space for other keywords, but the bullet points are what people look at, right? Most people don't scroll all the way down and read that long description. So stuff some keywords back there, put them back in. If those bullet points don't emotionally connect, and if your photos and titles don't emotionally connect with that buyer to click the button and purchase it, it doesn't matter two farts how much time you spent making this listing awesome and stuffed and all that stuff if people don't buy it, because you're not making money and you're going to fall in rankings. Now, there is a balance there. We're not just saying, don't use keywords, but instead of trying to put 60 keywords in your title, take the top 3 that you want to and make it look pretty and make sure people want to buy this thing. And quit trying to stuff your listings with keywords that you're never going to get. Like you said, plastic spatula. I'm sorry, but if you're launching a plastic spatula, you're never going to get in the top 10 pages of kitchen utensil. It's not going to happen. Take freaking kitchen utensil out of your listing, or out of your title at least, because nobody needs in your title for it to say kitchen utensil, because obviously a plastic spatula is going to be used in the kitchen unless there's some weird stuff going on somewhere with spatulas I'm not aware of. Yeah. But maybe that's a San Diego thing. I don't know. But
I used to spank my kids with it.
Oh boy, now you just fired up the comments.
I would get hit with the wooden spoon. I would get hit in my knuckles. My Filipino mom would, what are you doing? Boom. So I wish it was a plastic spatula.
Out with a wooden spoon. Those are the worst too, because they can get some speed on those things too. But all right, so let's go back to that. Make sure that's your first thing, the constant. No matter what the algorithm changes, no matter what the new keyword tool is, no matter what the new launch strategy is, none of that stuff matters if you're not also convincing the buyer to buy your product. All right. Great number 1. I hope you got an equally good number 2, because that's a pretty good one. Constants in Amazon selling, things that don't change. Number 2.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it, and I actually, it could be looped into number 1, but for me it is a number 2, and it's the emotional connection. All right. So number 1 is more like keyword and visually based. Like, you got to have the right keywords there, the keywords that are relevant to the buyer, and that buyer behavior dictates is important to your product. But at the same time, there's an emotional part that you alluded to that doesn't have to do with keywords. All right. And I think the last time we were together, the example that I showed you was how I was using, Review Downloader from Helium 10 to download the top reviews, or not the top reviews, all reviews from the top product in the collagen peptides. And I always go back to this because the very first time I saw this, it was completely organic and I had no idea what I would find. And I'll never forget it was like my first couple of months here. I was like, oh, for sure, I just found a mistake in the Helium 10. So I'm going to go tell Boyan, our CTO, like, hey, I found a mistake in your tool. Because when in Review Downloader, I can download all the reviews in another window. And then I click this button called Analysis. And what it does, it sorts all the common phrases in the reviews to see what's the most. And the number 1, I'll never forget it, was in my coffee. And I was like, Boyan, I got a mistake from your new tool here. How in the world is in my coffee the number 1 phrase in all the reviews? So I clicked on it. I started reading the reviews that had it. And then what I found out was everybody who is buying collagen peptides is putting it in their coffee. Like they mix it. It's like a powder and you mix it. And I had no idea because I didn't know what the heck the difference between collagen peptides and vitamin C and other supplements. I was like, whatever, And then that just blew my mind. So then that shows me, I'm going to take a couple step backs, is in my opinion, there's like 2 kinds of buyers. There's the buyer who goes on Amazon who's already married to a brand. They're just going on Amazon to look for the specific product. All right. Like if you are looking for Nike shoes, well, I saw it on a commercial. I saw LeBron James wearing it, or Yeezys, right? I'm going to get for Yeezys, 750 or whatever it's called. And I'm just looking for these. I could care less about reviews. I could care less about who's selling it or their metrics.
You don't care about the sponsored ads above it that are competing with them. None of that stuff. You're getting what you want.
Tunnel vision, right? I'm only looking for my product just because, and I'm looking on Amazon because I'm getting to get it in 2 days. And actually for my old company, that was like what most of their sales were, because they spend $100,000 in infomercials every week on TV, and people don't want to buy it on the infomercial, even though it's cheaper. What they're doing is they're watching an infomercial and then they say, oh,
Yep.
I'm gonna just type this in. I'm gonna get it on my Amazon Prime account. All right. They could care. All of our products. We had a product that was selling 150 units a day, 2.5 stars. 2.5 stars selling 150 units a day. People could care less about the reviews because they didn't care. They saw the product, they wanted it, and they're going to order it. All right. So that's great. If you have a brand, if you have that brand awareness where you can pull in customers like that because they're just looking for your brand or they're looking for your product, wonderful. The majority of us are looking for buyers in category 2, where they just say, hey, I need shoes for my Zumba fitness class. And so they're not searching Nike shoes. They're searching best shoes for Zumba fitness or whatever, right? So now they're open. They're not married to a brand. So if they see this brand, they're going to click on it. They're going to take like 10, 15 seconds. And again, put your buyer hat on. How long do you spend at a listing before you go to the next one? For me, it's like 10, 15 seconds. If I don't see something that catches my eye from the images and the first couple of bullet points or the first part of the description, if you're looking on mobile, actually the description comes before the bullet points. Make sure you sellers know that, that don't just focus on your bullet points. But if I don't see something that just catches me, that hits one of my needs, my wants, my fears, my goals, I'm going to the next product. So we've got a very short window where you've got to catch them. So going back to now rewinding back to the collagen peptides example about the coffee. Well, if I was selling collagen peptides, my first bullet point is going to be talking about, hey, would you like to have an easily dissolvable powder and get your protein in your everyday morning coffee? All right. If you look at the top selling collagen peptides, most are not doing that. Most of them have all these scientific terms that'll bore you to death, but those are keywords. Those are maybe what they found using helium-10 cerebro, and they're finding out keywords that people search for. Yeah, hydrolyzed collagen is probably something that people search for. And so, they should have it in their listing, but I would say not in your bullet point because that doesn't make any emotional connection with me. These scientific terms doesn't tell me why I need to stick with this product. I'm going to the next one. But if I see something that says, hey, I'm going to use this in my coffee, well, that does. And so many sellers forget about this emotional connection because guess what? In my coffee is not a word. I don't care what tool you're using, even helium-10. In my coffee is not going to come up in your keyword research because that's not something that people search for. That's what they're thinking about, what they're going to use it for. But what they're searching for is collagen peptides, collagen powder, hydrolyzed collagen. And those are the words that come up in keyword research. So what I do is I put that in my bullet point, and then also I change my lifestyle image. A lot of the top selling collagen peptides, they have the most random lifestyle images. The one I love is they're selling like $250,000 a month. It's like a husband and wife giving each other a piggyback ride running in the beach or something. Like, what the frig does that have to do with collagen peptides, which is for your hair, skin, and nails, right? I'm like, what is that? It's a good looking model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reshoot. I'm going to take those good looking models, that husband and wife. I'm going to put them at a breakfast table, reading the newspaper, drinking a cup of coffee in a jar of collagen peptides there. And that's going to make the emotional connection. So that's my number 2, guys, that you guys need to take away is emotional connections are as important, if not sometimes more important than your keyword research. Because if you don't get them within that first 10 seconds and speak to what their fear is or whatever they're trying to fix or whatever they're trying to gain, there's a good chance you're going to lose them to the next listing.
Yep, absolutely. That's big. So, and they are kind of related, but there's still 2 separate things that you guys need to have on your to-do list. Like after you've gone through your to-do list of all the different keyword research and all the different listing optimization stuff, have a secondary key list of like, all right, or a secondary to-do list of like, now what do I need to look at? And make sure that you hit these 2 things. And they're both focused around, the customer experience, the user experience, the UX, but they're 2 very completely different things, right? Executionally, they're 2 different things. So not talking about listing creation, let's change a little bit because you and I get to talk to a lot of Amazon sellers that have, other business issues, or they have, other problems, or they have other successful things they found in their business not related to setting up an Amazon listing. What is one of those things that pops into your head is like a business constant? Like, hey guys, you're out there chasing that shiny object. Like you're looking for the next piece of software, the next location to source, but you're forgetting this. And, a few of those, like I hear constantly, are people don't look at profit loss statements. Like they're moving a lot of money, but they're not making profit. Another thing would be to not create yourself a job. So many people are just making a job for themselves where they're having to do everything instead of creating a system where they can outsource this and grow. What is the one thing that you see that people oftentimes forget about, but is a very fundamental aspect of online businesses that never changes? It's always the same. It's a constant.
Probably for me, though, the first thing that just came to my mind is ROI. People don't think enough about the return on investment because they just want, like you said, some people don't even look at their margins. Well, I don't know what they're doing, but if they do look at something, usually it's only their profit margins, right? And then they wonder why they're not able to scale their business very fast, or why they're growing month on month 5%, or why they can't reorder products, or why they have so much product sitting in Amazon accruing storage charges, is because they didn't calculate their ROI. And the first time I really looked into that was I actually took also one of those education things I said I took was Freedom Ticket from Kevin King, and he has a whole module dedicated to ROI, and it was just like eye-opening to me, like the difference in ROI. If you guys are studying that, and that could be a whole episode by itself. So guys, if you don't know anything about ROI, Google return on difference between ROI and profits, and it's going to open your eyes about a different way to kind of position yourself when you're in your product planning stage. All right. Yep. You've got to factor the ROI, because if your ROI is low, you're going to find yourself, maybe you're only going to be able to launch a new product like every 6 months or once a year. And your growth is so small. So if you want to be able to scale faster, get ROI. That's a bigger percentage. Another thing is diversify your income streams. All right. People, how many horror stories have we heard about Amazon suspending your account? Whether it's legitimately suspending it, or maybe it's because somebody was sabotage you, right? And then guess what? You have a big business and your revenue goes to zero. So guys, regardless of what's changing as the in thing to do, whether it's Shopify, 1 year, whatever, do everything. I just read an article that Target now is going after, Amazon and Walmart, trying to get third-party sellers to come on their marketplace. So guys, have your listing in Target, have your listing in Walmart.com, Jet.com, Etsy, if it's appropriate. Diversify your income stream so that if something happens, heaven forbid, to one of them, your business does not come to a screeching halt. Even in Amazon, don't just do Amazon USA. Do Amazon Canada, do Amazon Europe. Did you know what now I believe is I believe it's number 3, do you know the top 4 marketplaces for Amazon as far as overall market share or revenue?
I know it's US, UK, Japan, and I think India.
Yeah, Germany is actually, I believe, 2. Okay. And then Japan, what you said, well, Japan wasn't even barely on the map, but they actually leapfrogged UK and now are number 3, which was a complete shock to me. I was like, what? And then 4 is UK. And then, India is one of the newest ones and they're coming up. But hey, if your product is able to sell in those, Amazon makes it easier for you to open up to those other marketplaces. They want you to. Guys, diversify your income streams so you don't get screwed when something happens. And it doesn't matter what size of seller you are or how white hat you are. Things can happen to you that are out of your control. But if you have a diversification, you're not going to get hit so hard.
And don't just diversify your platforms, diversify your products. We've got multiple brands. We've got multiple products in each brand. And sometimes products die. Sometimes they just stop. Earlier, you were talking about the cell phones. You guys were rocking and rolling and, 1,000 cell phone cases a day. And that business doesn't exist anymore. It completely died. And
if you the Fast and Furious business, for years, I wish I took all that money and started making some side businesses and side different brands. Yeah. I had everything in that. And then when the market fell out, boom, I was dead.
Now, I want to put the brakes on what you're saying a little bit, because you're right. But guys, that doesn't mean that you need to get the shiny object syndrome. And when you've launched your first product and you're selling your first 10 products a day, that you're setting up those sales on every platform out there. Because I'll be honest with you, if you've got a kitchen spatula, you're not going to sell it on Jet. You're not. Jet's not the platform for that, especially, some very, very new listing, right? But you could spend hours and hours and hours trying to get this thing optimized and set up and, buy the software to link the 2 accounts and get on Jet. But you could take that same amount of time and find another product to sell on Amazon, right? So you do need to diversify, but make sure that you're also not getting that shiny object syndrome. The ROI thing is huge too. We fall into this trap of looking at revenue. Okay. And I got that Facebook post you're talking about earlier, that rant I got on was there's another software tool out there that was encouraging people to follow in the footsteps of listings that are massive revenue. And it's exciting, guys. The headline of that email is like, oh man, this brand sold $200,000 of products last week. And that's exciting. And it's like, we get this big head and like, we can do it, but guys, they're not making any money. Like they're probably taking a bath in those products and they're doing a mountain of work. They've got a mountain of capital tied up and they're not making any money. But it's cool. It looks good. It sounds great. When you're looking at, guys on Facebook that are gurus and they're showing these screenshots. If their ROI doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I can go out next year and create an entirely brand new Amazon account under a business. And I assure you 1,000%, start from scratch in January and sell $10 million in 1 year. I can do that by flipping stuff at cost. It doesn't mean I've made a dime, but I've moved $10 million. Well, whoop-de-freaking do, right? I was listening to, I think it was Garrett White. Are you familiar with Garrett White? I talked about him on our last podcast, or one of our last podcasts. He was speaking at Funnel Hackers Live, and he's one of those like kick you in the face, reality guys. And he was up there screaming, and Funnel Hackers, they encourage people to get in that 2 comma club, right? Like sell 2 comma club, sell $1 million worth of stuff through one funnel, right? And what he said was, hey guys, this is great, but if you're not making money, it doesn't matter. He said, there are guys that have stood on stage this week that are in the 2 comma club X, or to 2 comma X club, which means they've sold $10 million one funnel. He said, but tell them to open up their bank account. He said, and let me show you mine. I promise I got more money stashed away than they do. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. Because it is like glamorous and it sounds cool. And like people want to chase those lifestyles. But if you're not making money, it doesn't matter. And even if you're doing a lot of, and I hear people all the time say, well, yeah, I'm selling low ROI, but I'm doing high volume. If you're doing high volume, you're doing a lot of work, you're keeping a lot of money tied up. And if you're only making that small ROI, you don't have the flexibility in time, capital, and energy to go find other products. So you're stuck in this vortex that you can't get out of, right? We're always launching brand new products ourselves. And guys, these products, a lot of the software, like the validation tools say it would stink. They'd give it like a 1 or 2 star because a lot of people aren't selling them. And we're like, awesome, we'll be the first to Amazon. And you know what? We might not sell 100 units a day. We might not sell 50 units a day. There's some things that in the off season, we only sell 12 or 13 units a day. But our per item ROI on Amazon, even considering Amazon fees, is a minimum 100%. Minimum. So I can pull up my spreadsheet right now and I could show you like all of our listings, and we're between 1 and about 320% ROI for every product that we sell, guys. That's huge. And the volume per item isn't, huge. It's not glamorous. It's not going to be anything that's like super sexy, but you know what? We can replicate it 100 times. So now not only have we got the high ROI, we've got the low competition. We're not in people's targets. People aren't shooting missiles trying to knock us out of the sky.
That's so important. I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
When you that's another thing Kevin King says. Kevin King is like a 8-figure seller, right? And he has, everybody is always so scared about hijackers or all the black hat stuff. He said, hey, I'm selling 8 figures. I have never had a hijacker. I've never had somebody attack my reviews or try and get me suspended, because he goes under the radar. He doesn't go for those collagen peptides selling 300 units a day. He's going for all these other smaller niches.
The abstract stuff. Yep.
Those sellers who do those kind of stuff, they don't even care about those kind of things.
Yep. So not only are you not a target, but now you're diversifying. Just like Bradley just said, you're diversifying. So if one listing goes down, if I get one hijacker, fine. I talk to people all the time that their entire business model is one listing. And when they get a hijacker, like game over. And they're like, oh, I lost, 7 days worth of sales. Well, guess what? They just lost like 2% of their annual revenue from one hijacker. Don't do that. So, well, thank you for bringing that up, because I feel like sometimes I'm beating my head against the wall trying to say that, and people don't listen to me. And to be honest, there's so much noise out there that contradicts what you and I just said. There's so many people that are speaking something different. And I'll tell you guys why. It's because what we just talked about. Because when we sell a product, we have to make an emotional connection to the buyer of our product. Well, when there's somebody out there that's selling a course or giving information, they know that they have to make an emotional connection to you, the potential buyer. And a lot of times that emotion can override reality, and it's really easy to get sucked into that. I get sucked in all the time. I mean, I'm not going to stand up here in my soapbox and say I don't. I get excited about stuff. But if you're not looking at the basic principles of an online business. Be a good seller. Make sure that your listing is something that people actually want to buy. Make sure your ROI is good, and make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're setting yourself up for potential massive failure. And Bradley and I have seen it time and time and time and time and time again, where people have to stop what they're doing. They go bankrupt. They've got 12 containers full of products sitting in a warehouse somewhere they just abandoned, and they're going back to working at a regular 9-to-5 job just to put food on the table because they did one of those things wrong.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, we've been going for a while. I think we need to wrap it up, although I know you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours and give stuff. So we'll do this again. Anything final that you want to say?
Maybe just one last quick thing. Aim higher. Guys, don't think that killing it on Amazon. Aim high. There's an Aim High Air Force or something like that. But aim higher. Don't think that killing it on Amazon is the apex. All right. It's not. The example I gave you, I told you how I brought that diet pill company on Amazon to 2 million. You might think that's amazing. That's nothing. I was a sales manager there. They sell to Walmart, brick and mortar. I would see POs come across my desk just for like a certain region of Walmart stores. And just for like one month, $10 million POs come across my desk for just one region. So guys, there's more out there than Amazon. If you take Walmart, for example, let's say you get in their 6,000 stores, one of your products, all right? And each of those stores is selling 2 units a day. That's 12,000 units a day you're selling a day, all right? And 2 is kind of a minimum. I mean, if you're in a humongous, with all the foot traffic that Walmarts have, you're going to sell more probably than 2 units a day. But just to give you an idea, guys, so don't just say that, hey, if I'm crushing on Amazon, that's the best I can do. No, that's going to put you better than most people, but there's also higher goals that you can reach for. And that's the traditional brick and mortar route, getting to grocery stores, getting into department stores, getting
wholesale stuff, subscription boxes. There's so much stuff. I couldn't agree with you more. And I've got on my soapbox about that. Never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. But if you think small, if you limit yourself, and I've talked about that before, it's so hard not to limit ourselves because we're humans, and that's just what we do, is we criticize ourselves, especially entrepreneurs. We're the worst about it. But guys, there is so many opportunities out there. And I come across it all the time. I think, I do this full time. Half of what we do is help other sellers and half what we do is sell products. So my life is like selling products. And I think, oh crap, the whole world's selling products. Like, everybody's my competition. But step out of your house, step out of your office, step out of the coffee shop, wherever you're at, and go next door and find a stranger and say, hey, do you sell on Amazon? And they're going to look at you and go, what? You can sell on Amazon? What are you talking? Like, the world doesn't even know about this. This is like the very beginning of everything. Like, there's so much opportunity out there. And if you're not thinking bigger, then you're thinking wrong.
Exactly. So think big, guys. I mean, Amazon's a great start, but don't make that don't make it the end game there.
All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, post them in the comments. If you're watching the YouTube video, post them in the comments. We'll hook you up with an answer for that. You can track down Bradley, track down Helium 10. Helium 10 is literally a piece of software that we have in our office every single day, open and working for us. We've got some great training videos. If you look at our YouTube channel, we've got some training videos we've done with Bradley where we talk about specific aspects of how we use different features of Helium 10. Really, really great suite of products. You guys need to check that out.
And don't pay full price. Tim's got a discount, the Hickory 50. Make sure to put in a Hickory 50, guys. Don't pay full price for Helium 10.
I actually forgot about that. Yeah, if you guys want to sign up for Helium 10, Hickory 50 promo code. Thank you for reminding me that, because I don't even think of that stuff. I know, man. I appreciate that. Help our folks out big time. Give them a discount. And check out, what's the name of your new podcast?
Serious Sellers Podcast.
Serious Sellers Podcast. You told me it just broke into like the top 30 business podcasts and
it hit 33 on the day 2. We're even ahead of people like Ty Lopez, and you're gonna be a guest on there in a couple of weeks. So guys, check it out. Tomer, I mentioned him today a little bit. He has a great podcast. Lee Ron, who we all know, Kevin King's on there. So a lot of the guys I mentioned today that I referenced, they have some episodes in there that you guys can get some crazy value on.
And then, of course, there's an AM/PM podcast, which is the original podcast associated with Helium 10, Manny Coates, those guys. Check that stuff out. A lot of resources. I know you guys watch out for Bradley. He's out all over the place right now. People interviewing him. He's doing really great deep dive content on YouTube and some other platforms. Check that stuff out. It's free information, guys. It's free information, and it's good and it's relevant and it's up to date. So check that stuff out. Thank you guys for coming on this podcast. Check us out on Facebook, Private Label Legion. We've got a page and a group. Like the page, join the group. You can like our page, Hickory Flats, which is a service side of our business. And of course, check out our website, hickory-flats.com or privatelabellegion.com. And the podcast is obviously you're listening to it right now. If you're watching on YouTube, go to like Stitcher or iTunes or somewhere and subscribe to that podcast. That way you get notifications of every single episode that drops. So thank you, Bradley, for being on. We're going to sign off. Thank you all for listening. Keep hustling, keep working. The opportunities are tremendous, but you got to get off your butt and take advantage of them. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See you there.
You've just wrapped up another episode of Legion Radio, hosted by Tim Jordan. Past episodes, links, and show notes can be found at privatelabellegion.com.